So we were talking about Beast Wars as a podcast about two comedians rewatching the 1990s TV series Beast Wars Transformers. Although we are discussing a children's television show, the podcast itself is not intended for children.
So, I built this new communications device, but I think it's a piece of hot garbage.
Oh, for booting up cold, I could have told you it would have been hot garbage before you even started working on it.
Yeah, I don't even know why I bothered.
I know why.
Oh?
Yeah, you're always horning in places you don't need to be.
Because my rhinoceros form has a horn, and it's also, luckily, good at blasting through boulders. You know, for a second, when I was about to ram that boulder, I was thinking, oh man, like I'm locked in now. I can't swerve. And suddenly I was just afraid I wasn't going to be able to blast that boulder. Well, it's lucky that we don't have real bladders. I'm just telling you that.
Well, I didn't piss myself, but you know what I was thinking when you were headed for that boulder?
What's that, Rat Trap?
Man, fuck this guy.
You're sounding just like our boss, Apetimus Prime.
Somebody out there talking about me?
Yeah, we were just talking about how I built this comms device, but I'm really pessimistic about it, and I think it's a total piece of shit.
You know what the best comms is? An olive branch of bananas.
So we were talking about Beast Wars.
Yeah, we were talking about Beast Wars.
I was just joking with Rhinox's pessimism. It just noted to me that he seemed really pessimistic about the new communications device he created. Because I wrote down 3 instances. He's like, Optimus is like, this will let us talk to each other from farther away. And Rhinox goes, if it works. And then Optimus says to Cheetor, just talking to it and we'll hear you. And Rhinox says, we hope. And then during the test, Optimus says, looks like it's working. And then Rhinox says, so far. Like, I can't tell. Is Rhinox meant to be not believing in himself? Or is that just him being pessimistic about the overall lousy situation they're in?
That's interesting. I guess the bias for the engineer who creates something is, you have a lot more faith in this than I do.
That makes sense. Yeah, because engineers know that for the most part, things do take a lot of different iterations and experiments. That each time you experiment, you learn a point of failure and then you correct that. And eventually you've hopefully identified all the points of failure.
That having been said, Rhinox, when nobody's looking, does do lots of sly smirks, kind of telegraphing that he's socially engineering people to do the right thing. But it's really hard to tell when he's genuinely being pessimistic and when he's manipulating people in a benign way.
Yeah. I wonder if there will be a later episode that shows that he would have made a good Predacon.
Oh.
Yes. So we were talking about Season 1, Episode 3, The Web. It opens with a nice simulated helicopter shot zooming into the maximal base, which is neat and ambitious. But once again, I'm not going to harp on this, but I will say those graphics did really remind me of an early 90s CD-ROM game. And then the rest of the episode looked fine, but for some reason that helicopter shot just really, to me, reminded me of the opening to Myst or something.
You know what's weird? I wrote down an observation about that too, and what it really reminded me of was Tomb Raider. How about that?
This episode takes place at least a month after the pilot, because they mentioned that Rhinox has been working on this communications device for a month. We don't have a sense of have the two factions had any interactions since last time, or have they just been each trying to make their own situations more habitable? Rhinox has invented this communications device, and Cheetor, continuing his characterization from last episode, just wants to rush off on his own. Optimus agrees to allow him to help by saying, sure, you can run fast, go run, check in with us every 5, I think, microquads, which seems to be a unit of distance. Although I think they end up using clicks most of the rest of the time, if I recall correctly. Because at first I thought microquads was supposed to be a unit of time, like checking every 5 minutes essentially. But no, then they say, oh, he's already 5 microquads away or something. I guess that's distance for now.
Do we think that's a quarter of a mile, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, but also it sort of doesn't really make sense because quads sounds more like it's short for quadrant or something, which already itself means it's a quarter of something larger. And so it's funny to think about a micro version of a quarter of. It's like if we call pennies microquads instead. Oh, yes, this penny is worth 1/25th of a quarter.
Yeah. I guess if we called quarters microquads, that might work.
Yeah. Cheetor comes across Scorponok, who has found a mega cannon, I think they call it. His way of getting it out from underneath rocks is to just blast it point blank with a missile. And I found that really hilarious. And I love that for Scorponok. And I'm also glad for his sake that it worked, because he would have been sad if it just blew up the cannon itself, which is what I expect.
He also could have easily killed himself.
Yeah. Well, continuing on what we were discussing last time with Scorponok has some stuff going on that we don't need to shame him for.
You do use Scorponok.
Yeah. When Cheetor transforms from cheetah mode to robot mode, I did notice the communications device magically moves from his cheetah foreleg to his robot arm, but that's all right. It's a TV show. He announces himself to Scorponok, could have just shot him, and then told the gang, hey, I just took out Scorponok. And you've got this device. But maybe Cheetor knew that a single shot wouldn't do it since he shot Megatron and Megatron just acted like he'd been slapped lightly. So maybe Cheetor knows this gut gun of mine won't do the job.
Yeah, maybe it's more akin to a slingshot.
But then Tarantulas distracts Cheetor and Scorponok blasts him with a missile. Maybe this show just really treats missiles and laser blasts differently. And maybe that's the thing. The missiles are high-powered stuff, and laser blasts can be shaken off. Because this missile puts a hole in Cheetor's chest. He goes offline. He has a dream sequence taking place on Cybertron. And at first, since we see that plane flying, I was thinking, oh, are we going to see his Cybertron form? You know, like, oh, did he used to be a plane or something? No, then we just see him in his Beast Wars form. So it shows his, I guess in his dream, he's maybe reckoning with his fears about like, oh, I act all cocky, but then, Tarantulas and Scorponok got the drop on me anyway.
I wrote down some observations about that dream, too. First, I was surprised that we got a view of Cybertron in episode 3 of this show. I completely forgot about that scene, and I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, same here.
Also, the dream seems to be akin to a soldier having a PTSD flashback, but it's also used as foreshadowing because Rat Trap shows up in the dream.
Yes. Yeah, I did see that. And Rat Trap only shows up for like a real blink and you'll miss it kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it was really inexplicable.
Cheetor already knew that deep down, Rat Trap really cares.
It's interesting. I didn't think about this till much later. I think they might have been setting up Rat Trap as the maximal foil to Tarantulas.
Oh, yeah, because they're both the sneaky one.
Yeah, they're both the sneaky, crafty one, and they'll do it pursuant to whatever their values are. Rat Trap will do it, but to facilitate the greater good, even though he tries to project himself as being selfish and self-motivated.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. So Cheetor then wakes up from his dream. Rhinox is operating on him and has fixed him. I don't know if injuries like this require operations or have the showrunners just not come up with the idea of the CR chamber. I think in later episodes, they just dump somebody in that CR chamber and then it handles it all.
Oh, that's interesting. I assumed that he had come out of a CR chamber, but you're right. It doesn't actually show you what he wakes up out of.
Well, it looks to me like he's on an operating table or some kind.
Oh, that's a good point.
But then everybody really rips into him. And I get their criticisms, but I think they expressed it in an unhelpful way. Because when they say, you jeopardized everything and you could have gotten yourself killed, and now they have the mega cannon. And I wish they'd spelled out what you should have done is observe quietly from a distance so that we can track them until our backup arrives. And then we could have all worked together. Because as it is, a kid watching this could assume that what they wanted him to do was just leave and let them them have the mega cannon.
Yeah, that's a good point. Cheetor did have a point there. One of the things that I took away from that was, well, maybe they're not saying what they should be saying because they're emotional, because Cheetor means something more to them than they're all telegraphing.
Yeah, which is definitely something that we learn about Rat Trap by the end of the episode. Cheetor's arc in this episode is he learns to be more of a team player, and Rat Trap shows that he really cares when he goes, oh, if you ever do that again, I'll rearrange your face, or whatever it is that he says. His way of saying, you had me worried, pal.
Cheetor seemed nonplussed.
Well, he said at the end, and thanks, pal.
It was like kind of brush it off a little bit, but it's the end of an episode. It's fine.
Speaking of the mega cannon, though, I was really assuming that as part of Rat Trap's rescue of Cheetor, things would go down in such a way that the mega cannon would end up being destroyed, to basically say like, oh, Cheetor's screw up ended up having no consequences after all. But no, Rat Trap rescues Cheetor, but the mega cannon is still wherever it is. So I don't remember if the mega cannon specifically ever comes up again, or is it just part of the general armaments of the Predacon base?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal.
Maybe Scorponok just thought, hey, this is a mega cannon. It shoots missiles. I love watching missiles explode. Megatron's going to be so happy. And Cheetor saw him reacting like that and thought, oh, okay, it must be important. But then when Scorponok actually got it to Megatron was like,
great, just toss it on that pile of other mega cannons. If we had a mountain full of energon to power them, it would mean something.
Cheetor then goes out on his own to try to fix his screw up, but gets captured by Tarantulas right away. But like you said, luckily Rhinox has kind of guilted Rat Trap into going after Cheetor. So Rat Trap sniffs out Cheetor's whereabouts and finds him. Before he shows up, though, we see that Cheetor is in a web, the titular web, I suppose one could say, of Tarantulas, and it is draining his energy. And here we get confirmation that their beast components are not actually organic. They're simply robotic components mimicking organic material, because Cheetor says, hey, dummy, I don't have real blood, just mech fluid. You can't suck my blood the way a spider would. And to which Tarantulas is like, aha, but I'm a creep, and I like sucking fluids of any kind anyway, so whether it brings me nourishment or not. So suck on that, or I'll suck on that.
If we intend for this to be a kids podcast, we're definitely getting to the part we're gonna have to cut. Oh, I love sucking on everything. I can suck on anything, Cheetor. No, thank you. Anything. No, thanks. Don't answer now. I'm good, thank you.
Phil, you clearly missed Apetimus's appearances in the last episode. If you think that we are aiming for this to be a kids podcast.
What? Did somebody mention Apetimus over here?
Yeah, Apetimus. I was just telling Phil that one of your catchphrases, it's time to go ape shit, is not particularly child friendly anyway. So we're very much a grown-ups podcast for people who watched Beast Wars the first go around, and not people who are showing their kids Beast Wars now.
That may be true, but Tarantulas is weird, brother. Give me a sick 6-pack of Stone Cold All-American bananas, sitting right next to a side of some more bananas.
Oh, yes. Well, if you blend those bananas into a smoothie and put a straw in it, I could suck up those bananas, Apetimus. And I can suck other things, too.
Brother, I'm getting some really rapey vibes from you.
Ah, like you mean that time I crawled all over Cheetor while he was stuck to the web. Okay, I see where you're going.
Yo, that really did creep me out a little bit.
Yeah, it worked on 2 levels, and I'm not sure if the creators of the show meant it on both levels or not, but it worked on just the viscerally creepy level of giant spider climbing on you. But then also, if you look at it as if these were 2 humans and you had one human tied to a bed or something, and then their captor was laying on them, like you say, that's a very creepy, rapey vibe. So kudos to them for that. And also kudos to Apetimus for winning this round of ape shit or bullshit. He could tell the Tarantulas' offer of sucking smoothies was bullshit.
You know what's funny? I had this observation at the end of the episode, but I might as well mention it now. there was a clear moral for me at the end of the story. Caution is prudent because there are predators out there, like real predators. And that's actually a solid lesson for kids to learn. And that's when I started reading a little more into the really strong sexual predator vibes that Tarantulas was giving off. Like, don't let him lure you into a Dodge Ram conversion van with the promise of a new Fortnite skin or something.
Yeah, or the promise of just a sweet mega cannon.
That's not a mega cannon. Just keep grabbing it.
Just wait until I get excited.
Jesus Christ.
That's when it gets
Oh
mega
my
excited.
God. We're going to hell. So another thing related to that is Tarantulas talking about the vital fluids and taste is also another point of confusion, which you mentioned in the first episode about how their bodies work. And also from a social perspective, is cannibalism okay? Have you ever seen one transformer murder and eat the other?
Not yet in this series, but I do remember in a later episode, which we'll talk about when we get to it. I think it's called Double Dinobot, maybe? The Predacons seemingly clone Dinobot, but it's only a raptor. It can't transform. In the end, Dinobot kills him and eats him, which seems to me to imply that Dinobot was, I guess, a clone grown from the DNA of the fossilized raptor that they scanned, with just enough robotics in it to had a robot brain or something, I guess. And so I guess in that case, it had real flesh that could be eaten. But it does certainly imply that they can eat food. I think I remember there's one episode where Rhinox has to eat some beans. He's got a cold or something. So yeah, so even though their bodies are mechanical, they are still able to convert organic components into whatever they need to survive. You know what? I can only assume when they consume food, their robot stomachs just smush it all down into a tiny energon cube.
Yeah, we have confirmed that in this universe, other substances can be smushed down into energon.
Yeah, maybe that's what our bodies do too. We don't know. Doctors have never accessed the deep interiors of the human stomach.
Maybe that's what mitochondria do.
Mitochondria also sounds like it could be a Transformers name.
Mitochondria metabolize.
Digest. Breakdown.
Energy absorption. So we were talking about Beast Wars. Tarantulas is being a creep. Rat Trap shows up to rescue Cheetor. But like Cheetor, he announces himself. He says, I'm here to rescue Cheetor. And then Tarantula says, thanks for the warning. I will now dodge. And Rat Trap then has to fire wildly and not hit Tarantulas. I assume the showrunners are just trying to show that good guys don't shoot people in the back, which is why that happened. Because given what we've seen from Rat Trap so far, I definitely think he would shoot Tarantulas in the back and then rescue Cheetor.
You know what's funny? I had the same reaction when Rat Trap was walking up there. Based on my sense of Rat Trap after having seen the entire series, I think late series Rat Trap would have immediately shot Tarantulas in the back of the head.
Yeah. Whether that is because Rat Trap simply became more seasoned or because the writers just got more of a sense of who they wanted Rat Trap to be. And I guess also the further the series goes, the more the Predacons have shown themselves to be hard to negotiate with, and thus, yeah, just shoot them. You're not going to win them over for the most part.
Yeah, it does become more of a commentary on war and not necessarily a lot of war lacks valor.
Yeah, even ones that we let them be called Beast War.
Oh, yeah.
So Rat Trap and Tarantulas are having a fight. Rat Trap ends up destroying the web machine and cuts Cheetor out of it. But then Tarantulas has a nice line as he is trying to shoot them before they escape. Give my regards to the Inferno. I like that line. But then he shoots a missile which blows up his whole lair. The show creators stretch their budget by showing that explosion from 5 angles.
They sure do love bullet train montages on Beast Wars.
Yeah. Well, I can get why. Because you can animate, I assume, I am speaking as a seasoned non-expert in computer animation, but that you can animate something once and then render it from multiple angles, and you're getting your money's worth out of it.
That's genius. Although, yeah, that didn't occur to me either. And they've got to find some efficiency somewhere, because this was an observation I was going to leave for later. When you look at the number of scenes and camera angles and all the stuff they draw in it, I mean, this show must have cost a fortune to animate.
I bet it did. Later on, when we get to this, I'll see if I can find this information. But one of the head writers of the show, the two head writers were Bob Ford and Larry DiTillio. And I don't remember which one, but one of them directed an episode. I think it was Code of Hero was the first one he directed. And when directing that, he learned that apparently the mainframe animators did not use storyboards. They would just animate the episode in chronological scene order. And he was like, what? No, we're going to do storyboards. Let's figure out what scenes are going to be hardest, and we'll animate those first so we can make sure that we really get them to where we want them to be. And then the easier ones we'll hammer out last. And they got done ahead of schedule because they never had a real workflow like that.
Whoa, all of that is really cool to learn. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. Listeners, stay tuned to future episodes. When I actually find that information, I will read it again on the podcast. So take it with a little grain of salt for now, but that is what I had read around the time. So Rat Trap does successfully rescue Cheetor. Again, the Mega Cannon is still in the possession of the Predacons, but at least Cheetor is not dead. Rat Trap does not tell everybody that Cheetor had once again gone off on his own. They just keep it their secret. And then Rat Trap, as we said before, shows that he does secretly care by saying, if you ever basically make me worry like that again, I will slap you silly. And then Cheetor says, thanks, pal. So hopefully Cheetor has learned to be more of a team player. We learn that Rat Trap is a sneaky guy who, even though he acts like an asshole, he does really care, and he can be trusted to get shit done. So yeah, so that's this episode. That is the web. Any other thoughts?
Oh, yeah, a ton. In the intro theme, there's a shot of Megatron like shooting out in the open. And after having played the game Helldivers 2 a lot recently, I just think it's hilarious how much shooting out in the open with no cover whatsoever lots of characters do on the show. In the first scene, it feels kind of like Optimus and Rhinox are the parents. Like Optimus is the dad and Rhinox is the mom somehow.
Yeah, I can see that. Or at least with how they fall into the traditional TV roles of Rhinox. I'm like, well, I don't know. And Optimus like, oh, let's let the kid have his fun.
Exactly. That was exactly the vibe I got. I noticed that the technical communication problems are a proxy for the social communication problems that they're having.
Yeah, that is good theming. I think it also might just be a little bit of like table setting or world building just to show that this world is inhospitable and they can't always have backup. And it leaves them the option at any point in the future, they can have somebody say, come in. And then you just get static. Like if they want a character to have to be on their own, they've now established that here's the reason why that can be.
Okay, that's fair too. Maybe, and that's probably more important. In the vision that Cheetor has after getting taken out by Scorponok, he's in robot mode for the entire dream. And then right before he gets hit, he's in cheetah mode. And I thought that was really cool because they're trying to maximize his vulnerability right before being hit. Like he can't defend himself as well when he's in cheetah mode as he can in robot mode.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, maybe that was the intention. At first, I thought, just like, what the hell is the purpose of this? Then I thought, are they maybe trying to show that the sheer terror you have upon seeing a missile coming at you or recalling a traumatic injury is more primal and bestial than like coldly robotic? As you talked about in our last episode, they will fight as beasts. Like these characters are more primal and in a more primal circumstance than the Transformers we knew in the 80s. I also wondered if that was why. He's a cheetah looking at that missile.
After that, Rat Trap is eating an apple in real life, and there's a worm in the apple.
Oh, is there? I did not catch the worm.
Yeah, for some reason, I noticed the first little twitch of it, and it moves around twice, and then he eats the apple core, which is funny. I don't know if that was an allusion to I don't know if there's some kind of like in 3D modeling, in programming, there's like hello world. That's like the first thing you implement in any language to demonstrate how the language works. And then in like 3D modeling, people usually model a tea kettle, but I think they can also do an apple. And I wonder if the worm in the apple is some sort of allusion to that.
If so, that'd be a neat touch.
But I'm totally spitballing that. So there's a line in this episode that really stayed with me as a kid watching this. Cheetor says, well, at least I'm not afraid to do it. And then Rat Trap says something that ends with the phrase, you don't have the sense to be afraid. I think one of the reasons I remember that is because just because somebody is brave, lots of kid shows try to talk up the importance of being courageous, being brave, but maybe for being brave in the face of some sort of obstacle or challenge, maybe it's because you actually don't understand everything that is involved with you confronting that thing. Like a smarter person in your shoes would be afraid. And the reason you're not afraid is because you're not that smart. And what he's talking about is the utility of fear. Fear is not a bug, it's a feature. You don't get that angle in kids' shows.
Yeah, that's a really good point that, in real life, we have fear because our ancestors who had fear were the ones who survived. Our ancestors who did not have fear would walk off cliffs or just walk into a lion's den or whatever. Whereas our ancestors who had the sense to fear those things lived long enough to have kids. So it is a worthwhile message. I think that's a really good observation, Phil, that yes, very often in kids' shows, bravery is made to be the equivalent of being good and being right. But it is nice that the show points out, like, well, no, you can be brave and still make the wrong choice.
Yeah, there you go. I thought that was really important. And the reason that we don't have green hair today is because all of the Neanderthals with green hair were all really brave.
Yeah. They only survived in anime.
Or The Simpsons. Oh, Cheetor says at the end of that conversation, I'll show you what I have the sense to do. And I was like, that's kind of a weird, like out of control thing for him to say. I'm going to show you how well I don't fly off the handle right now.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing. It's hard to tell. Are they deliberately just, yes, we are writing Cheetor as a teenager who is not as smart and as cool as he thinks he is? Or is it a line that just isn't as smart and cool as the writer thinks it is?
Well, I thought it was really funny because it reminded me of a real life argument I saw in grade school.
Whoa, really?
I was at this school and it was recess and there was a girl in my class arguing with a boy in my class. And, it was escalating in the way kids escalate these arguments. It's like, yes, you will. No, I won't. Yes, you will. No, you won't. Yeah, I will. So the argument is going on and the boy goes, you are not. And the girl goes, yes, I am. And the boy goes, you are not. And the girl goes, yes, I am. And the boy goes, you are not that stupid. And the girl goes, yes, I am. And everybody started laughing.
Ooh, well played, kid. Well played.
This show is hilarious. I'm so not used to watching kids shows and seeing situations put before kids. Like, I haven't watched television where anthropomorphized animals talk to each other in quite some time. And as I start to watch these episodes again, what I'm used to and what I'm still not used to is kind of crazy. The show is hilarious. There's a scene where Dinobot and Optimus are talking to each other in beast mode about strategy. And a gorilla talking to a raptor was fine. But then when Rhinox walks in and joins the conversation, I was like, why the fuck is there a rhino here? In the climactic battle, the cat and mouse game that Tarantulas and Rat Trap play, where Tarantulas is looking for him with his night vision goggles on.
Yeah.
I thought the visuals in that were actually really good.
Yeah, I liked the way they depicted the thermal vision.
Yeah, that was it. And then I think I made the other points. The moral of the story is caution is prudent because there are predators out there. Solid lesson for kids.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of the episode, when they're assembling the comm thing from seemingly spare parts.
Yeah.
Well, they're electronics and the thing they're assembling is electronics. Did they get some of the spare parts from their own bodies?
Yeah, maybe. We do in a later episode, the one that I think it is called the Spark. Maybe it's the one that introduces Air Razor. A component of her stasis pod is damaged, and Rhinox has to use some component of him to repair the stasis pod. And I think it's his like energon absorbing chip or something like that. Like it really puts him on a timer for how long he can stay in robot mode to fix it. So yes, there's at least one episode that does show they are able to cannibalize their own body parts to build stuff.
Wow. I completely forgot about that episode. That's cool.
Yeah.
But it creeped me out a little bit here. Like somebody sneezed really hard and was like, wait a minute, you know that part you were looking for?
Yeah, or it would be the equivalent of like if on the show Lost, they're like, hey, good news. We've invented a new radio, but it's just like 2 coconut shells attached, connected by like 300 feet of human intestines.
Oh, that's gross, but still would have been cool and Lost.
Yeah. So, thank you everybody for listening. I've been Andy Hunter.
I've been Phil Thomas.
And now we have talked about Beast Wars.